So now that we got our repository locally, let's talk about how to actually move to the internet and how to allow other people to cooperate with us. This is where things like GitHub, Bitbucket, and other solutions come in. Those are called remote repositories. So as I've shown you before, Git is essentially a text-based tool. It's not very easy to use if we're talking about only using the text-based tool, and this is why some things such as GitHub have really been created, trying to make it easier to cooperate with other people as well. Because without any sort of remote repository and a central place for us to check out things is going to be very, very hard. So with that being said, let's dig in and see what actually GitHub is. So this is my own account on GitHub that I have created some time ago. Here you can see my history of contributions, what I have done, and this is also a very nice way to showcase that you are active on GitHub to your future workplace, right? When you are trying to get into recruitment, then of course seeing a nice history here and a lot of green is also going to be very, very important. So I've got my repositories, I've got my projects, etc. But right now, what I also have is I have this project that we have been using last time, namely the Git Showcase project, where we have created some commits, we have done some stuff, and right now I would like to invite other people to also work on it. So in order to do that, first I need to create a repository that is remote so that I can actually not really compare, but tie those two so that they are one and the same. So in order to do that, I just go back into the GitHub. And here I select my repositories list and I'll select the new option here. So here I can just select what I want to do. So this is going to be a repository called Git Showcase. Description, yeah, I don't really want any description. Let's leave it like that. Let's make it private. So if you make a repository public, anyone on the internet can see this repository, and if you were to go into my account on Git, then you would see it. And if it's private only, I can choose who can see and commit to this repository. There is readme file, meaning what shows up to tell you what is happening within the project. This is also very nice whenever you are trying to create a project for your portfolio to give your recruiter know what is actually in the content of it. We've got the git ignore that we have discussed last time. So this is the list of files that will not go into Git and will be ignored by Git, but we already have it. And I do not want any license. So let's create a private repository. And here GitHub is very, very helpful because it also tells me what I need to do in order to connect two of those things. So what I need to do to connect my remote repository with my local repository. So here, if I want to create a new repository, then I can just copy and paste all this to connect it from the scratch if I didn't have anything beforehand, because as you can see, it is creating a new README file, it is initiating Git, it's adding this new README to be saved. Then, of course, it's committing, creating a new main branch, not a master branch. And then it's adding remote origin. So in this case, this is going to be the Git Showcase on my profile. And then it's pushing. So let's talk a little bit about how to actually do it. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste those two comments. Let's go back into the IntelliJ. So yeah, let's use the terminal and copy over those comments. So here we've got the first comment, git remote add origin. So this means add the remote repository as the link to this local repository so that it's easier for us to communicate and actually point to the place that will be responsible for storing the data. And then we've got the git push -u origin main. So this comment is actually something that is telling so this is for the first push, right? So push means is get the local repository that I have now, all the commits that I've created from the last push, and then get it to the remote repository. So after I press this command, then what will happen is I will have my changes that I have done here. All the commits will be in my remote repository. So let's just press it. Okay. What I know is that I do not have a main branch, I have a master branch, meaning that I have just to use the master branch. Okay, so now everything is in order. I'm using an SSH key, that's why I had to do some stuff around here with the fingerprint. Also, a good tip from me is whenever you are creating a new account on GitHub or moving to a new PC, it is way easier to actually use the SSH key because it's very easily movable, and then you do not need to play around with the passwords, etc, etc. It's just a matter of using the SSH key that you have created. All the instructions actually on GitHub sites, they give a very comprehensive guide on how to properly do it. But yeah, with that being said, also please do remember when you are doing a first push, if you do not have a main branch, you will need to use the master branch because this is the default name of the branch. So yeah, with that being said, let's just check whether the changes that I have just made have been added to the GitHub. So right now we are back at GitHub, and right now there is nothing here, but if I refresh the page, then you can see that actually all the things have been added. I see how many minutes ago, what is the language that I'm using, or languages for the most part, how many people are watching, etc, etc. So right now, if I check the history of the commits over here, I also get information. So as you can see, the naming of the commits is very, very important because otherwise I do not know what really has been happening. But if I go ahead and see the changes, I can see what has been deleted, what has been added. So GitHub is also a very nice tool for cooperation in terms that it makes seeing changes a lot easier, and then cooperation is very, very simple. Of course, there are branches, there are other stuff, there are pull requests that you can see here, and quite a lot of things to be done for this particular service called GitHub, but we're going to be talking about them more in depth when there is a reason for it, because at this point in time, realistically speaking, when we are using only a single branch, there is no need to talk about it, but branching is a very, very powerful tool, and actually this is what enables all the developers to actually work with each other and not interfere with each other's work. So very, very useful. So now, whenever somebody wants to use my project, you can just go ahead, take this URL, and use a git clone command and paste this URL, and then you will get essentially the copy of the project with all the history, with all the information that is there. So this is very, very useful tool to be used for you in the future. And this is also where you will put your portfolio and copy the link to your resume whenever you are trying to get into a new job, right? Because this is the only way for you to showcase your project in a really structured manner without people needing to, download anything via your pen drive or email or anything of sorts. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is GitHub. This is the remote repository. What we have created here in the first video in our IntelliJ. So this was actually the local repository that we have just pushed. So the push operation, just to remind you, is adding all the changes that have been done locally to the remote repository. So very, very important operation that you will be using quite a lot. So yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next videos where we are going to be picking up the Java course once again. Thank you.